Hello to the denizens out there in the cyberwebs. I am Richard, not Lord Richard, just Richard.
And I am Karl, also not a lord or a knight.
I mean, Knight Karl is just probably not the best alliteration anyway, but thank you everybody for tuning in to Deep Space and Dragons, where we discuss various nerdy things and a surprising amount of time spent on Karl fabricating power tools.
I do like to fabricate power tools, although the closer I get to the end of a project, the more I get worried that it's not going to succeed, and the more I procrastinate on actually doing it.
So to follow up with that depressing topic, what's new in the world of Karl?
I purchased a vehicle several years ago, straight off the lot, brand new. It's exactly the vehicle I want. I got a ticket for an unsafe lane change, and the police officer gave me a warning that I didn't have adequate mud flaps. And I was very confused because, I bought it straight from the dealership. This is exactly how it came from the stock from the factory. But apparently in Saskatchewan and Alberta, and I don't know about elsewhere, but there is in fact legislation mandating that you have mud flaps if your vehicle is above a certain ground clearance.
I mean, the Saskatchewan mud flap law sounds like the most peak Saskatchewan energy imaginable, and if they don't say have Rough Rider written on it, or at least a green S, that's also ticketable offense, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, every vehicle in Saskatchewan has to be painted watermelon green.
You know what's kind of funny about your car is the idea that you get ticketed for no mud flaps while your doors are detached.
It's winter right now, so I definitely have the doors on.
But the mud flaps, those are dangerous, but just having no doors or roof and having 2x4 strapped to the hood, you're fine.
Well, as long as you have at least 2 mirrors so you can see behind you, it doesn't matter how many doors you have.
Oh, delightful.
So what's new with you, Richard?
So, having finished my final exams, it is cookie o'clock. So I spent an inordinate amount of time standing and making biscotti this weekend. Beautiful flavors, beautiful twice-baked cookie goodness. And with my massive intensive training, years in the kitchen, some management positions here, some industrial Christmas business there, I pretty much washed dishes and handed my sweetheart what she needed. And with the power of me cleaning as I go and making myself a useful house husband, the cookie task was achieved. Because her level of specification, because these are gift cookies, they will be measured, they will be perfect, they will be gorgeous, they will be beautiful. If they don't meet her specifications, I eat them. It is a pretty great way to spend a weekend.
I did recently watch a YouTube video about how we went from extremely salty butter, where salt was used to preserve butter, and it was actually almost inedible in its base form, to less salty butter because it became less relevant to have it preserved, to now having unsalted butter. It was kind of an interesting story about this transition from old school butter to modern butter, but
yeah, you
that's
better
neither
believe
here nor
it.
there.
You better believe it. Yeah, I stand by that joke. Also, it turns out you can buy sticks of butter that consist of 4 smaller sticks of butter, which feels like such a waste of packaging, but it's so much more efficient than actually measuring it. Because the pre-measured sticks...
And each stick of butter is half a cup of butter if you melt it down.
So this one being broken into
lines
quarters,
on there,
right?
Really? It was already broken into quarters.
Yeah, so it's a blocks of butter that has 4 smaller boxes of butter inside it.
That does sound like cooking heaven.
Exactly. And I mean, the Earth can take one more for the team, right? And with that, as we're talking about wasted cardboard, we move into tonight's topic, Magic the Gathering. Ooh. So, as you're going to tell me, what's new in the world of Magic? Because I have paid attention to literally nothing these last 2 weeks that isn't line editing and verb transitions.
Well, you see, Wizards of the Coast has announced a new unset. And the unsets are not sanctioned for any sort of official play. They're just casual. They have stupid cards every time you attack, you have to say la, or else you take 1 damage or whatever.
I
And
mean,
it's
I
just,
did have an uncard that was literally said on it, redeemed for a free hot dog, and the card shop I was at had hot dogs as an item, and they accepted it. Like, teenage me was thrilled that this worked.
wow. I mean, that does sound pretty awesome. But to distinguish them from the cards that are legal for play in other formats, the unsets have a silver border. But there are some cards that have been printed in the unset which are not that ridiculous and could feasibly function within the regular rules of and mechanics of Magic. And because of the Unhinged,
Sure.
I don't know, it was the last unset that they released,
Unstable,
where it
I
was
believe.
like unstable, right. Well, most of the Magic community has moved to playing the Commander format, and nobody was interested in a completely casual, almost. Some of those uncards are just literal garbage. But anyway, so nobody was interested in these uncards. So, in order to sell more cards, the Wizards of the Coast has come up with an ingenious solution. Because on the bottom of each Magic card, there's a small foil oval. Well, most Magic cards anyway, there's a small foil oval.
Well, once they did the whole card frame change about 15 years ago, because they did just like evolve the cards to this style. But continue.
But so the oval is like a security stamp for the cards, so you know that they're authentic. With a little foil thing. And for the new unset, there are going to be some cards that are still not legal for regular play, but those cards are now going to be denoted by having a little acorn for the security symbol, and then the ones that are in the unset but are legal for tournament play and whatnot will have the regular security stamp, which means that, I mean, it will be somewhat annoying trying to parse through and figure out which ones are actually legal for other formats, but there will be a significant portion of these uncards which are fun, cool cards, like the Space Family Goblinson, which will actually be legal in, well, specifically Commander, because that Magic knows that that's the format of the day right now.
It's kind of funny. So, while I'm listening to lectures, especially during my previous semester that was completely remote learning, I hit like Mythic rank on Magic Arena because I would just play Magic subconsciously while paying attention to lectures, because quite frankly, sociology is not that gripping, and I'm able to fully functionally play an adequate Magic the Gathering match against a lower rank rando online while doing these lectures. And then I realized I was higher ranked than like many people I knew who were actual like professional Magic players, because I just like had these lectures and I needed to get through them. So when the Dungeons & Dragons crossover set for Magic came out, I played an absolute ton of that game, because I'm like, heh, Magic the Gathering novelty. I'll try and build decks that aren't even remotely feasible, but entertain me because I'm fighting randos on the internet as I'm running 5-color Cobalt Tiamat and other nonsense. I'm like, I'm going to put a free legendary dragon into play. It's like, so for those who aren't active Magic the Gathering players, Magic decks are typically 1 or 2 or 3 colors, because to play a card you have to pay for it with mana, and mana take up slots in your deck. So, to play Tiamat, for example, you would have to have 5 different colors in your deck, which means if you don't have all 5 colors in play, or cards that make colors of those colors, no Magic Dragon. So trying to actually play a Tiamat was just, it was a bad card, but it was a cool dragon. So I was dedicated to this. And through my trial and tribbles of just random Magic things, I climbed super high up. But unfortunately, Magic the Gathering Online decided that our video game will have the same basic pricing as real cards, even though you get nothing, can't redeem it, and this has no value whatsoever. So, like, for example, my brother could be like, yeah, I entered a tournament and won 12 matches in a row. What'd it give you as a prize? 6 trading cards in another tournament. So they'll have like big cash money tournaments, but they'll be like, to win this, you have to first win 7 matches in a row. Okay. Then 7 more in a row on day 2. Okay. And then you have a chance to win this prize. How much does it cost to enter? $40. Wait, so you want me to pay $40 to try and win $1,000? That's correct. And it's 15 rounds, which means that you have at least $400 coming from me alone to try and get to this end. That means your prize payout, based on the ratio of people who actually win versus entering, is so unbelievably small for you to win that many consecutive matches in a row, because out of every 14 people, 1 wins. To then get the privilege to enter a tournament to then maybe win. It's literally mathematically insanity to enter these tournaments, because they're just making money because there's no physical prize. You win virtual trading cards.
Huh. Well, I mean, Wizards of the Coast isn't the only company that's taking advantage of loopholes concerning what is effectively
gambling,
unregulated gambling.
Right?
But Wizards of the Coast has definitely really they've amped up their release schedule, and I mean, I really like this. They call it the Acorn technology for the on-cards that are illegal in other formats, and like I really like the crazy design that it lets them put into cards that you can actually use, but it also, like, at the end of the day, they're a company, they're trying to make money, and so it's like they're really just trying to sell more cards. So like another one of the things that they've added to the new unset is the stupid valuable shock cards, the shocklands. Yeah. They're doing reprints of the shocklands for the unset, because they know people are going to buy them. That they're like, it's good that they're listening to the fans.
Well, this is where I'm going to pause you on that one, though. So, I've been playing Magic since I was probably 15, to the point where my older brother once won a paid trip to Spain to play in the Pro Tour. So, like, statistically speaking, I was the 9th best player in Saskatchewan. If any of my Saskatchewan players are listening to this and you want to call me out on my boisterous claim, by all means. I mean, it's kind of funny because, like, the running joke is an acquaintance of mine who, I guess I'll leave nameless for now because I don't have his consent to put on here, was one of the best technical players in the game probably ever, who ran a lot of events. But my brother would play around him by knowing that he would always make the right play, so he could technically bluff him out by thinking the optimal play would happen. So my brother, if he didn't have his crippling ADHD and panda syndrome, was mechanically a very good player. Like, he was able to steal a match point against an actual pro player. Like, not win the game, but win a match against people who do it for a living. But when we started playing, they would do things like player rewards, where they would send you cards just for being a player and showing up for tournaments. Like, in the mail, you'd get full art promo cards. You'd show up to a tournament, they'd give you a couple mythic rares, a big booster thing. Because they're trying to expand, grow, and treat it like an organized sport. There would be tournaments with huge payouts, huge prize pool, and if you entered enough tournaments and did really well, you'd get pro points, become a pro player. But with the advent of gachapon money clickbait games, they're like, oh, well, why would we put in this effort to build a sport when we can build a digital game that people will just gamble on and throw their money away? So they've been skimping more and more on being a physical game. Not counting the apocalypse. I don't count the last 2 years for any of my case studies. They just didn't happen.
Right.
But before that, they were pivoting more and more into wanting to be this Twitch streaming video game rather than a physical activity that was somewhere between a sport and a game. And for me personally, the more that's stripped away and the less value I felt from going to a local card shop to play, I'm now in a big city and I'm sure I could find one easy, but there's not the payout. There's no way to win consistently enough to then become able to be self-sufficient at this hobby, since they focus so much more on novelty products, where there was upon some time an ability where they released things slower, things maintain their value longer, where you could actually free roll yourself through the game.
Right.
So at the point Magic's at for me now is I'll play it mindlessly on the app, even though I could theoretically win 500 games in a row. It would do nothing because I'm playing against the entire world simultaneously, rather than going regional to provincial to national to international. When you stop having the local tournaments build up to the regional tournaments, build up to the provincial tournaments, you don't get that ability to, like, prove yourself among a reasonable sized group of peers. Which makes it unreasonable for you to ever actually hit vindication for your hobby. So Magic's mostly became less about, ooh, new cards to play with friends, and more, it's literally me clicking a button clicker to kill time, or in the rare case, specifically playing formats to play with my friends with pre-established cards. Where if you tell me, hey, here's 6 decks balanced against each other, you should buy them in a kit so you can play Magic with your friend, or here's a box designed to draft to play a 4-player game, those appeal to me more than actual competitive cards, because being self-sufficient at the game is just not a thing I can do at this stage in my life. And I don't think that's what they want me to do either. They'd rather me throw money into the internet.
Well, throwing money into the internet is definitely an easy way to collect the money. Like, it's...
Well, what's kind of paradoxical about it, and this comes to mine and your friendship specifically, with Magic the Gathering Arena, we could theoretically play a game of Magic once a day, and with the time it takes between, like, our shifts lining up and schedules, we literally could play a game of Magic once a day. But when we lived together and had the physical cards, because it was different than sitting in front of a screen or playing a video game, the idea of playing Magic was actually more appealing. So even though it's easier, we have access to the tools, we don't have to shuffle, we don't have to set up, we have reasonable built-in card collections, we can play with pre-established decks that come on it. We have yet to actually play Magic online against each other. But you're willing to fly out with trading cards on a plane to play against me. Which goes to say that pivoting to try and be a Twitch streaming video game is a move that takes away some of what made it interesting in the first place. But you're welcome to disagree.
No, I definitely do agree. There's a trend to move towards digitization because it's
infinite money.
So much easier. It's so much easier to create and maintain a digital empire than it is to create and maintain a physical empire.
Especially
and
now.
The cost of the logistics of making sure people have their product, making sure that there's actual judges, like the Magic the Gathering has so many huge advantages over traditional matches. But there is definitely something that is sorely missed about not playing in person.
Yeah, that's like one thing that's I find fascinating is the idea of a board and card game, where there's always like that certain tactile advantage to playing a physical game. And it makes all of the sense in the world for Magic to move into let's focus on our online platform. But as a physical game, with the infrastructure they've set up, the local card shops holding tournaments, the physical artwork of the cards, the history, the fact their cards can maintain value because of that history, or in a digital game, there's just one digital game in an ocean of digital games. Like, there's no salient difference between playing Magic, playing Hearthstone, playing Legends of Runeterra, or whatever internet card game you have, when you don't have that inherent history, shared cultural history and value found in Magic. Like, in my kitchen days, me and my buddy Goodmark would talk about how he'd collect random cards to play with his friends. And this wasn't tournament legal, ban list enforced, min-max, I need to make sure to have specifically Scrylands on turn 4 to increase by 0.5% my odds of drawing the card. No, they just put trading cards in decks and had fun with each other. And since I spent too much in the tournament culture of why would you play a suboptimal deck when you can research a deck online, build it to the best of your ability because it's been play tested in a world tournament, and then fine tune it for the meta, the idea of casual Magic when I was like in my Magic the Gathering arrogance bugged me a bit. Because it was, what are you guys doing? You're talking about this hobby, and I don't even think you know how the rules work. But as I descend further and further into my sweater vest wearing tea drinking future, the idea of playing a casual game with friends where the rules are less important than we want to sit and play a game, and these are the pieces we have. Honestly, switching it to a complete environment of everyone's using the same copied internet deck on online Magic Arena, where the algorithm's set to match me to people who have the same deck as mine for some reason, that's a whole nother debate. There's so many secret algorithms running behind that game to mess with it, where it's like, oh, did I just draw a land, or the algorithm decided I needed to lose so I wouldn't win at the tournament? Like, it's hard to tell, like, how insidious these digital-only games actually are.
As a somewhat random tangent, I went over to my parents' house for lunch today. I'm grateful that my parents are that I live close to my parents and that they're able to invite me over for dinner and stuff. And my sister lives at home with them, and she has a random collection of cards that basically, like, I bought her some dual decks, or I bought her some of the Planeswalker decks. I like to call them friendship decks because they're what replaced the dual decks, which I love the dual decks. I have the entire collection, so it makes me sad. But that's not it. The point of the story is that she just had a bunch of Magic the Gathering decks, and she's like, yeah, let's just play a match. And so we just picked up a deck, and surprise, she had an Infect deck. The deck that she played, I thought she was going to beat me because I was down to like 4, but then I managed to get enough creatures, and she just the momentum switched to my favor, and I was able to, I had enough damage where if she blocked my non-infect creatures, she would die to the infect creatures, and if she blocked the infect creatures, she would die to the non-infect creatures.
Well, it's kind of funny.
But it's just
oh, go ahead.
Well, it made me happy to be able to spend time with someone doing something that we enjoyed together.
Like, to directly follow up with that, so one of mine and my brother's habits are when new card games come out, we'll buy a couple starters, try them out against each other, play with them, get into the new game for a bit, and then never touch it again, and it'll disappear into the void of space. So the number of
Elder Scrolls.
Not just like digital ones, but physical ones too. Like, we tried the new Digimon game when it came out, which, other than one infuriating bad mechanic, was really cool. We played Dragon Ball Super cards for a while, which are very well engineered, but I could not beat them for the life of me. And then, like, we played all these card games our entire life, like, to the point where there's a decent chance that if a new game came out tomorrow, and we had the surplus funds, and I was like, let's clear off a table and play, he'd be down for that. And when it comes to Magic, part of the problem where we don't just play Magic is because we don't just have, like, well-balanced decks set in boxes. Because what'll happen is, like, people come over and be like, oh, let's build decks, because building decks is part of the game. But when you build with random infinite connections, you just kind of get hit by choice paralysis, and it becomes difficult to play. So, what's weird, though, is we both play Magic the Gathering Arena online, but we'll rarely play each other matches. Where instead, we'll go to the effort of leaving our individual rooms, which I could, if I was athletic, throw a perfect curveball to hit him for the distance apart we are. Clean up the living room a bit because the table will have documents and forms and things on it. Clear it off. Set up our deck max, play a game. Be like, yeah, that was amusing. Play for like 8 hours. And then not touch it again for a year. So it's interesting that, like, even though the digital game has advantages, we'd probably rather dust off the physical things than play with the digital ones. Which is why my favorite Magic Gathering products are ones that require the least barrier to entry, despite the fact that if I needed to enter a tournament in a small town in Saskatchewan, I would do pretty well still. Like, for the sheer amount I played during lectures and things. But Magic is only a skill-intensive game to a certain point, and there's enough random variance in it that you can't just be better and always win, which is why everyone doesn't just play chess, because it's not fun to just always win and lose based on who's better or worse. Fun fact, you're better than me at chess. This has been established.
I probably have played more chess than you have. But so kind of bringing this back around to the start here, like the most popular format right now seems to be Commander.
which for those unaware, Commander is 5-player Magic with a bunch of extra rules, but the takeaway is 2 to 5 player Magic.
I personally don't think it's that great if it's only 2 players, but that's neither here nor there. The point of the matter is that I'm pretty fortunate that my roommates also love to build decks and have collection. And actually now, like, it makes me a little bit sad because I mentioned I have the entire collection of the dual decks, but those are for standard play. And now we have almost as many Commander decks created as I have dual decks in my personal collection. It's just so many Commander decks because the game is so much fun to just like sit down, and especially in the past few years here with people not being able to get together as much. It really makes you appreciate being able to get together and physically play a game with your friends.
Oh, for sure. And despite my possibly negative thoughts on the potential future of the Magic the Gathering is to go into more cross promotions, more selling of more printing of physically money cards, a more focus to digital instead of physical. That doesn't discount the decade and a half of entertainment I've gotten out of it. Which is probably why most things that I give angry rants about are the things I was the most passionate for. Like, I could complain about Bleach for End, probably because I was really invested in how good it almost was, but just refused to be. So when it comes to Magic, I look at it, and I look at things other games have done and played. I look at some of the flaws and the good, and I think about all the time I've put into it. And it's like, it bugs me that it's the best physical card game because of its, shared history, products available. Like, for example, Dragon Ball Super cards, there is no 3 to 5 player mode because they're idiots. Just, it's incomparable to me. You would invent a new card game from scratch. No Magic the Gathering exists. Be able to do a Google search on it. Learn that, 70% of players prefer Commander now or something? And not put that functionality in your brand new card game is just, it hurts me on a spiritual level. Right?
It drains you of your key.
Yeah, it really does. It's rough. I look at some of these new card games. They're like, new Digimon card game. I'm like, okay, you've engineered something cool. Yeah, there's a mechanic where you flip over a card when you're hit, and if the card flipped over has a higher thing than the attacker just dies. I'm like, why would you put that in? Your game was good up to this point. Why? Or it's like, here's this new card game. Okay, it makes a lot of sense. So far I'm following. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And no, I don't understand these rules. I run 5th edition D&D and you lost me. Your game's too complicated. Stamp down. So it's like, why can't you make me a 3 to 5 player game that doesn't have the obvious flaws of this card game from the 80s? And the simple solution is that I don't know. It's the best I have to, Magic the Gathering manages to win is the best of the worst. Because if you've ever tried playing 4-player Yu-Gi-Oh, don't.
Just don't play 4-player Yu-Gi-Oh.
It just doesn't work, even though they had episodes of a TV show where they did exactly that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, tangentially, the TV show didn't know the rules to the card game.
Which really worked in its benefit for the writers.
The TV show didn't even know the rules and laws of physics.
I mean, but to be fair, Magic the Gathering never had an episode where 2 best friends fought to the death strapped to an anchor and the loser would plummet to the bottom of the sea, so they tried to force a tie so they died together.
I was thinking more about the episode where the holograms were creating enough damage to knock people off tower walls.
I mean, there are so many layers to that scene. But yeah, Magic the Gathering, it's kind of funny is they put out a terrible MMO. And I feel objective saying that because the game sent me an apology email after it shut down after a month. Offering me a coupon for their other products. It's like, we're sorry this game was so bad. If you'd like to try one of our better games, we're good, we swear. Here's a 20% off coupon. I've never had a game apologize to me for being bad in my life. That was a special kind of tragedy. But Magic, isn't going for the big cross-media promotion. But now that they're starting to, it's kind of a bad look on them. It'd be kind of like when if trying to make Battleship into a movie. It just would be... I couldn't even do that with a straight face. Uh,
Ooh.
and like a lot of these online games, quote unquote, take advantage of being online by mechanics that don't work in real life, like generating new cards out of the ether or creating a random card that, like, things you could do in a physical game but would take too much effort. And I honestly find they take away from the game's authenticity a bit.
Yeah, the Magic the Gathering arena definitely. I don't know if they still have any of those mechanics, but they definitely had a few really weird mechanics where it's like fetch a card from your deck, but don't shuffle. But what? In real life, you just really cannot do that.
Like, they
give
actually
you so much information that you're not supposed to have.
And one of the things they do, like, for Magic Online, they recently were trying to test, like, they did some online-only cards, like, here's a persistent mechanic that wouldn't work in real life, we're trying online. And I think what they're not getting is the physical game backs the authenticity of the online, not the other way around. Where for League of Legends, they're making a full cinematic universe, like, watch our Netflix series, then play our card games with our show, with our two characters you desperately want to end up together in the animated series. You can make them be together in the card game. My motivations are suspicious. Don't judge me. Where, for them, their card game can have all sort of wanky hijinks because it's a companion piece to their actual video game, and the animated series is a companion piece to that. But for Magic, if they forget that they're a card game, they'll kind of just blend into the void with everything else. Which is a bit of a shame, because playing card games with your friends is great.
Well, I mean, for right now, Wizards of the Coast can always just fall back onto their increasingly full release schedule of D&D content.
Yeah, that was a topic for probably next week. So, let's wrap up today's episode. First up, we have our random dragon question. Here is the random dragon question of the week. What is your favorite song by either a band with the word dragon or a song containing the word dragon? What is your favorite dragon-themed song?
I don't know if the word dragon actually shows up in it, but I can't. Homestar Runner, the Strongad, the Trogdor song. That has got to be my favorite dragon song.
No, why would you pick that?
Because it's so awesome, but so terrible at the same time.
You were a music major. You nearly taught songs to children. Oh, wow. I can never predict you, my friend.
What is your favorite dragon theme song there, Richard?
So, I'm going to give a shout out to Imagine Dragons for doing the intro for Arcane, which I recently binge watched on Netflix, because that soundtrack is great. But if I'm being honest to my heart, it's not going to be the actual good quality band. It is going to be when Team 4-Star of Dragon Ball Z Abridged spliced together Jingle Bell Rock and the Canadian Dragon Ball Z opening Rock the Dragon to make Jingle Bell Rock the Dragon.
Yeah, okay. Like, that's a pretty good choice,
too. They edited an entire Dragon Ball Z movie into a Christmas special twice, and it made sense. And, they had some music that went... Like, they did a full album. It was delightfully stupid.
Just as a tangent about Imagine Dragons, I don't like Imagine Dragons because they sold out to Bionicle. Oh wait, no, I was thinking something else.
Wow,
there was a band that sold that they did their Bionicle had a crossover with them, and then like Lego Bionicle had a crossover, whereas like the Bionicle characters were saving this band that had been captured and forced to play for the bad guys.
I mean, first off, there's a Kiss and Scooby-Doo crossover, so I'm fine with real-world bands crossing over with childish bullshit. It actually makes me respect them more as a general rule, but I get where you're coming from. But here we go.
Any event, random question time now.
And remember, if we use your random question of the week, you can win a digital deluxe copy of the Waltz of Blades. Deluxe, that's 2 times the deluxe. Order now, and that way I can then eat for Christmas, and it will be great. Okay, so our random question is, what bends your mind every time you think about it?
What bends your mind every time you think about it? Ooh.
So, I think I'll take first shot at this one. And at the risk of sounding like super hipster or deeper than I intend here, when I stop and think about the fact that the Earth moving through space is kind of trippy. But when I think about the fact that our galaxy is whipping through space around other galaxies, and our entire galaxy could just hit something, and we'd have no way of knowing because we simply can't look that far, that trips me out a bit that our entire galaxy is hurtling at ridiculous speeds through the cosmos, dancing around other galaxies. Just the scale of that would be like being a single white blood cell, and then Carl gets in a car crash, and your entire universe just explodes out of nowhere.
I guess on kind of a similar concept for me, people say that time travel, impossible, whatever, right? But I really enjoy thinking about the idea that like the universe is spinning and moving. So I wonder how many people have successfully time traveled, but they ended up in the same spot, but the universe moved around them, and so they just end up in space somewhere because they traveled back and the Earth wasn't where they thought it should be.
I've also way too much thought about that, where if I had like the teleportation quirk, I would just end up technically not on the planet and just be in the vacuum in space and die.
Yeah, because you have to account for the movement of the planet that you're on. Like relativity really bends my mind in general. The fact that it's like we don't even there's no way to comprehend how fast we're actually moving from on the planet Earth itself.
And with that, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you follow us on Patreon, you also get a digital deluxe copy of the Waltz of Blaze Deluxe. Follow us for 3 months, and I think you get a mug. Not quite sure if you've received your mug yet.
I think I am at the point where I think I can receive the mug now. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that I'm supporting my own channel on Patreon, but gotta be somewhere.
Put your money where your mouth is behind our product. So very clearly, we have to invest in ourselves, because that's only a perfect plan to let a middle party take our money and give it back to us. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful time.
Bye.
Bye.